Hey, just Don here. Unrehearsed, but I've got a few verses written down and just an idea here to think about. um, Isaiah 53:3, prophesying about Jesus Christ. He is despised and rejected of men. You ever been that way? A man of sorrows. How does that describe you? Have you been that way? You had some acquaintance with that? And acquainted with grief. It doesn't just say that he had grief here and there. He was acquainted with it. It's something that was a regular neighbor, regular roommate. Acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. And he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Matthew 13, maybe Matthew, hit Matthew 8 first, since it's first. Matthew 8:20. Jesus Christ again. And Jesus saith unto him, Jesus responding to someone, the foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. You ever been homeless? Maybe you just never owned your own home, living in an apartment or living in a duplex or some kind of rental or something. Maybe living in a trailer park or whatever. Well, Jesus Christ had to live outdoors. He didn't have a home. He didn't have a place where he could lay his head. He said, even the animals have a regular place they can call their home. But if you want to come and follow me, I don't have a home. I'm living wherever I can find a place. Matthew 13:55. Is not this the carpenter's son? The carpenter's son. Jesus Christ was the son of a carpenter. And of course, up until recent times, you did what your father did. Was where you get your name from. These last names meant something. Taylor, because they were tailors. A miller. Trying to think of another example. But you look at the last name, and if you knew what that name meant, you're like, oh, it's this kind of a trade. That's because the grandfather did it, the father did it, the son did it, and then his son would do it. And Jesus Christ, earthly stepfather, I guess is the right way to say it, was a carpenter. So Jesus Christ had to work with his hands, no power tools, worked hard. That's what he was acquainted with. Hebrews chapter 4, you work hard, you work with your hands. Maybe you have to put in a 12-hour day or whatever. Hebrews chapter 4. I'll get to my point. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15. For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities. In other words, he can be touched with the feeling of our infirmities. You ever have infirmities? A regular thing that comes up? He can be touched by them. But was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. He knows what that temptation is that you're tempted with, you're burdened with. Verse 16, let us therefore, in light of what we read, let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. Look at 5:8 right there, talking about Jesus Christ. Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience, something he had to learn. He couldn't learn it as God. He couldn't learn it when he was the angel of the Lord, the angel of the Lord, the appearance of God. But when he actually became flesh and blood and took on the body of a man, he learned some things. And one of them was he learned obedience by the things which he suffered. Don't you learn a lot of stuff that way? You learn the hard way. You learn things a lot of times through suffering, and that's how he learned things. And being made perfect. What's that mean? Wasn't he perfect already? Well, not in the sense of knowledge. It said in verse 8 that he had to learn obedience. So he didn't have perfect knowledge of some things. He was made perfect, verse 9, through verse 8, going through those experiences. And he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey him. God, the second member of the Trinity, Jesus Christ, had to learn some things that God in eternity could never have learned, because they had to be learned practically. They had to be learned by experience. And he went through the roughest of lives so that in Hebrews 4:16, we could therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. If you had a God that never went through what you've gone through, never had to go through those tough work days, never had to go through those times of persecution and those times of not having anything, those times of where you're thinking, man, who's going to be able to I'm going to be able to even talk to, who's going to be able to relate to what I need to talk to someone about, because I don't know anybody that's been through this or been through it to the degree that I've been through it. Well, the life that Jesus Christ lived encompassed all that. He went through very hard times, lived a hard life, and went through enough of that kind of thing that when you go to him, he can be touched with the feeling of your infirmities, and he can know, I know what you're going through. I know what that feels like. I know why you're so burdened by this, and why this has really grabbed your emotions, and why it's really stirred you up, and why maybe you're angry about this, or why you're saddened by this, or why you're mourning about this, and so maybe so strongly mourning, or whatever it is you're going through. Going through a really hard time, and you're not seeing the end of the tunnel, and they tell you to go talk to a psychiatrist or a shrink. Those guys don't know anything. They really don't. They know some fanciful words and some fanciful terms, and most of them came out of a home where there was quite a bit of money, and they went to college paid for by mom and dad, or it was on a scholarship, and from there they maybe went to some office where they were hired or whatever. I mean, it just, they don't know what you know. They haven't been through what you've been through. Jesus Christ has. He's been through it. And he's not just going to try and flatter you with some fancy Latin or Greek words to make you think that you're getting something from him. You go through the words of the King James Bible and pray to the Lord Jesus Christ, and you'd be surprised what he tells you, and the comfort that you get from that. And nobody else is going to be able to do that. Nobody else. And I just wanted to convey that. I wanted to remind you of that. that you have a God that's been through it. Literally, as a man, he took on flesh, became a man, and he was put through it, and he's able to not only understand what you have to come to him with, but he's gone through it. All right.